The wonderful perseverance of German and Allied troopers during World War II had a mystery: fixing, execution, upgrading drugs. During the 1940s, Nazi soldiers were generously provided with a methamphetamine called Pervitin, while American and British officers remained alert with the assistance of the amphetamine Benzedrine. Clinical officials on the two sides conveyed these energizers, and others, for example, cocaine, to keep fatigued fighters conscious for a considerable length of time at once, to empower troops to perform longer under rebuffing conditions, and to stifle the horrendous and crippling impacts of shell stun and post-awful pressure issue (PTSD). As per Insider Facts of the Dead, World War Speed, another narrative airing today, June 25 on PBS, as this authoritatively authorized pharmaceutical weapons contest unfurled. Warriors who consumed these medications were pushed past the constraints of their typical capacities. However, the drawn-out effects of medication use were to a great extent overlooked by military clinical authorities, PBS delegates said in an announcement. Amphetamines, a gathering of energizers that incorporates methamphetamines, influence the focal sensory system, as per the National Institutes of Health (NIH). They incite a feeling of happiness, increment readiness and reduction hunger, the National Institute on Drug Abuse (NIDA) revealed. For methamphetamines, a greater amount of the medication in a solitary portion legitimately floods the cerebrum, contrasted and different amphetamines, which means they are longer enduring and are possibly increasingly hurtful to the focal sensory system, as indicated by NIDA. Sedated, dauntless and wild, the German methamphetamine Pervitin was at first advertised during the 1930s as a recreational jolt of energy, and researchers were exploring different avenues regarding Pervitin before the war to perceive to what extent understudy clients could remain conscious and still perform well on tests, said World War II student of history and narrative expert James Holland. By 1940, Pervitin was broadly dispersed among pilots in the Luftwaffe, the Nazi flying corps, to prime them for the rigors of long missions, or to avoid restlessness and appetite if their planes were destroyed. Holland disclosed to Live Science that was the time of the Blitz, the Nazis' constant and decimating besieging assault against Britain, in activity energized by huge amounts of speed. Holland said, records from the British War Office evaluated that over the 3 months of the Blitz from April to June 1940, around 35 million Pervitin tablets were sent to 3 million German fighters, sailors and pilots. Nicholas Rasmussen, a teacher in the School of Humanities and Languages at the University of New South Wales in Australia, announced in 2011 in the Journal of Interdisciplinary History. Following this mixture of medications, Wehrmacht officers, as the soldiers in Nazi Germany were called, walked and battled for 10 back-to-back days, catching and crushing the British armed force at Dunkirk in an unequivocal military triumph, PBS agents said in the announcement. In Britain, gossipy tidbits twirled about plunged besieging Nazi pilots with a superhuman protection from G-powers through medications, and papers portrayed sightings of German paratroopers who were intensely sedated, intrepid and crazy. As per Rasmussen, you can't work after British knowledge specialists found Pervitin tablets in a brought-down German plane. Authorities incubated an arrangement to fuel Allied troopers with a comparable concoction advantage. They chose the amphetamine Benzedrine as tablets and inhalants. Britain's Royal Air Force formally endorsed its utilization in 1941, to be provided at the caution of the clinical official connected to the unit or airbase, Holland said. Be that as it may, on the grounds that Benzedrine wasn't as risky as Pervitin, the medication despite everything conveyed dangers, Holland included. It prevents you from resting. Yet it doesn't prevent you from feeling exhausted. Your body gets no opportunity to recuperate from the weariness, its misery. So there comes a point where you fall off the medication and you simply break down. You can't work, he said. English and American armed forces grasped amphetamine utilized despite the fact that at that point, the medication had not been enough demonstrated to support execution in exhausted subjects. Rasmussen wrote in the 2011 investigation. Or maybe, the Allies embraced the medication for its mindset-modifying abilities, it expanded hostility and certainty, and gave a lift to resolve. Rasmussen said, at the point when American troopers arrived in North Africa in 1942, they were likewise working affected by speed. A large portion of 1 million Benzedrine tablets were provided on the sets of General Dwight D. Eisenhower, as indicated by PBS. Additionally included in the PBS narrative is a 1942 reminder from a British leader, expressing that British 24th Armoured Tank Brigade officers got 20 milligrams of Benzedrine for every day before a fight in Egypt. By examination, the suggested dose for pilots in the Royal Air Force at the time was just 10 milligrams. Amphetamines are as of now perceived as high hazard for dependence and misuse. Be that as it may, during the 1940s, specialists entirely excused this idea in logical writing. Analysts detailed in 2013 in the Journal of Psychopharmacology. Before the seconds over World War II saw expanding information on the symptoms of these medications. What you don't see is how to manage individuals once they become snared. That is something that must be scholarly the most difficult way possible in the years that followed, Holland disclosed to Live Science. The full degree of habit and how destructive they can be was not appropriately comprehended, Holland said. Toward the finish of the war, there was next to no assistance offered for individuals who got dependent.